Welcome, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about hope and living in this beautiful, crazy world and what it means to meet what we're feeling and to do everything we can to be the best version of ourselves. I'm Joey Remenyi from seekingbalance.com.au, and today I'm talking with Megan Salole from the Hope Dispatch. And Megan's a big picture thinker, quite literally. And so we're going to share this conversation together. Welcome, Megan. Thank you for your time.
Kia ora, Joey, from Aotearoa, New Zealand. It's a real pleasure and a privilege to be able to have a chat with you today.
Yeah. I'm sitting on Wadawurrung country, and I want to acknowledge that there are so many dances and stories coming through the earth beneath me, singing, vibrating, moving, and that where we are in space and time shapes us. So I'm shaped by the culture of the land and the country here. It's a saltwater country. And Megan, do you want to just touch in a little bit about where you are and help us to locate to you? You're across the ocean from me.
I am. I'm here in Aotearoa in a place called or Tautahi, other name being Christchurch in the Te Waipounamu, the South Island. And I love the way you talk about you finding how the space and the land and the country shapes you, Joey. And I am very much shaped by this beautiful place, but also in my relationship to its people. So I would call myself tangata tiriti, which means that I'm a person of tiriti or Waitangi, which is the founding document that binds the Maori and the Pākehā, who are the colonizing sort of presence here, who into a bond and a relationship. And we are
Mm.
often struggling and increasingly at the moment struggling to make sense of what that contract, what that relationship is. For me, it's less of a contract and more of, as I say, like it's a bond and it's a beautiful bond. I'm experiencing it as a beautiful bond because if you get bonded in the trust between peoples, then amazing things can happen. I feel really enriched and expanded through that relationship. So I see it not so much as contract and more as friendship.
Yeah. And what you're referring to there is the pathway of decolonization. And am I right? And unlearning and unwinding away from embedded systems that are not fair for all people. And so we're opening up new conversations, a new way of sharing our beautiful earth and honoring ancestral and old ways of being in relationship with the earth. Is that
Yeah,
the
well, I couldn't have said it better. I think really the invitation is to appreciate that we are raised and shaped by worldviews, and there is a very dominant, capitalistic worldview, patriarchal that and colonizing worldview that is part of my heritage. And then so the invitation is to go and look at other worldviews and see that they sort of in contrast, I found my own to be lacking. And that's what I mean about the relationship. It sort of has enhanced me in ways that I couldn't have ever imagined. I was hungry for something, and I found that through the relationship that there's the connectivity, the with the living world, there's the relationship to each other and family and those past. And some of these things have been lost. I mean, I'm sure that somewhere back in my time, in my path, my family history, I am Indigenous somewhere, but I'm not here. That's been disrupted. I will never have that again. But what I do have is the opportunity to learn and discover and create a patchwork, I guess. Not an appropriated patchwork, but one that is, constantly tended.
Yeah. Coming back to hope,
Mm.
something that weighs quite heavily on me, like probably one of my biggest grief points is is this feeling of what you beautifully call my flowing knowing, in that I experience the interconnectedness and relationship between all things. It's very real for me. And so I experience a kind of shock or dismay or confusion when I live in a world that isolates and separates and categorizes and judges and creates these sort of static talking points about living systems. And so it's been a huge point of frustration for me through university and through the medical system. And because from the way I experience the world and see the world, we cannot separate our thoughts from our emotions, from our lifestyle choices, from our relationships, from how we dress, from where we live. Everything is connected. And so, who we are as people, how we identify, how we relate to ourselves and the world around us actually shapes our medical
Mm.
experience and experience of quote unquote symptoms. So this really is it's a cultural conversation. And I often feel lost at sea in these little isolated rooms, where we're either talking about only the ear or only the thoughts or only the emotions, and there's not this sense of connectivity and how everything is actually moving and bouncing around the exact same experiential conversation. It just depends on from what vantage point we're sitting. And there's something about my understanding of many Indigenous and ancestral cultures. So I live in Aboriginal land here in Australia, that there is a collective understanding of this reciprocity and how we are part of the earth. Country is an extension of our body, and that the ancestors are communicating with us and talking. Everything is connected. It's like no doors are closed. Um, so anyway, my hope and my grief is that collectively as a modern day community, we can begin to soften some of what I would consider these mental cages we've developed ourselves on what's possible or what's real, and that we can begin to expand our awareness really into these mysterious and unknown places, which Indigenous cultures were able to hold so gracefully. The unknown, the unseen, the non-material.
Yes, I think what's happened through the process of, well, human evolution, I would say the modernity, is that we've become so abstracted, and that we're sort of abstracting at a rate of knots, which is taking us away from the real, the physical, the things that we can genuinely trust. So
Yeah.
we're breaking trust, our own trust, and trust with each other and trust with our world at a kind of alarming rate. And that's not just a statement. That is a fact. We have declining democracy at like a rate of knots we've never had experienced before. There are so many indicators of trust collapsing, and I think trust lives in the body. And trust is something that is experienced between, it's that sort of relational space. And so if um, we are seeing things as siloed or compartmentalized or as a problem to solve in its in isolation, then we've lost that connective intelligence, the sort of the things that it's like the what the microbes are to the trees. It's we're not really paying attention to that the flowing knowing, which is something that you have this aptitude, this awareness, this an intelligence. Uh, but I think I'm excited, Joey, because for me, where we're heading is toward that level of intelligence. We just are going to lose a lot along the
Mm.
way. We have to shed because we're in this a composting phase of our
Yeah.
human expression. We're just actually having to shed all the things that don't serve us. We've got to shed these ideas. We've got to shed the kind of egoic way. We've got to shed the materialistic ways. We've got to shed our these models and metrics for success, we're going to have
Mm.
to let some things go and let them be digested so that we can arrive at a more flowing and interconnected way of living in our world. And I mean, I'm kind of optimistic and hopeful that our technologies have a place to play in that, that we've found a way of creating a collective intelligence, uh, but it's only going to be useful if we're making sure that we are using it for very valid reasons, that we are in control of its unfolding, that it is here in service of us and not the other way around. And, we're going to have to change our financial system. We're going to have to we're going to have to do some things that make us feel deeply uncomfortable, which is very difficult for couple of generations of people who have had the most remarkable security and a sense of things being settled and easy, that has ever happened on this planet. But that was never a guarantee of being human, because that world that we've created is showing within that two generations it's not sustainable. We can't do that. Doesn't
Yeah.
That's not the answer.
The thing that comes to mind as I hear you share all of that is the C word. And the C word, I mean, is comfort. That we have grown into an unrealistic sense of comfort, in a sense. And this flowing knowing we're referring to is a somatic intelligence. And I can't, a lot of people do not trust somatic intelligence. They do not trust their impulses or their instincts. And they get worried that it will take them down the pathway of, evil or greed or addiction. And actually, I feel like it's much more simple, and I'm hopeful too. I feel like people really can trust their somatic instinct. And part of it is actually being able to pause and slow down into those edges of discomfort. Because when we are continually sitting in places of comfort, A, we're not growing and we're not challenged. And even this morning, I woke up early before my children, 5 a.m.-ish, and it's still winter here. And I didn't put on the heater. I just sat watching the waning full moon out the window to the west. And I thought I could put on the heater, and that's not a good or bad choice, but there's something very alive and alert and awake about feeling the chill. And I had a beautiful warm blanket and a candle going, and there's something about allowing ourselves to feel and allowing the discomfort to play its role, because pains, which don't have to be extreme pains, discomfort is kind of like a mini whisper of pain. Pain is the loudest language of the body and it calls our attention in. And when our consciousness is drawn into sensation, we're home, we're present, and we're in our power because it's in our present physical body that we can act, we can speak, we can be intentional, and we can show up as fully human in this moment. And when our attention goes out into the clutter of social media and politics and othering, the children, the husband, the wife, the employer, the boss, the weather, when it's out there, we're losing our power because we're actually losing our location, our sense of self, our eight senses. And it's through that very intimate connection between our attention, our intention, and our somatic intelligence through the eight senses, right? It's through that inward connection that we can really act from
Mm,
our unique voice and our unique power. And when I zoom out and look at that collectively with our 8 billion people on the planet, or however many, we have like 8 billion little radio receivers and human filters of reality. And when people are actually present in their body, knowing the signal from the noise, we will get a
mm,
beautifully gently self-organizing system of humans on the planet, where everybody just knows the right thing to do and the kind thing to do because you begin to learn that language of your body. And you can speak to this perhaps if you wish, but I know that when I act from greed or spite or my shadows or competition, it actually feels yuck. It's not a groovy, juicy feeling in my body. So I'm getting that feedback instantaneously of, that actually didn't feel nourishing when I went down that road of greed or whatever comparison. So that's fine because then I can realign and try again. What would be the kinder way to treat myself and what would be the kinder way to treat others? We end up getting oxytocin, we end up getting dopamine, we end up getting serotonin. And it's like, wow, okay, this feels good. Here's my internal pharmacy on board. So once we learn that somatic knowing, it's like they talk about pilots, you go a little bit off track and then you come a little bit back on track, a little bit off track, a little bit back on track. And we learn how to navigate through pure presence.
Now, I just to touch on the point of, where so being in the body and creating that, this is I think we're just been called to a greater intelligence, but it's here and it starts with us. And so, there's so much information in the body for us, so much feedback and, comfort, creating this kind of realm of comfort, and kind of externalizing bad thoughts. Like that's almost, I feel I've just been watching Bruce Perry's, he does, it's called, nope, can't remember. He's off in visiting indigenous tribes and trying to understand what they do so well. And it's called Tribe. But what he discovers is that they've got all these rituals and processes, and those are their way of creating comfort. And so, they're like, this is the comfort of my ancestors. They're here with me. They live in our village. They're right, we name them every day. We speak with them. They guide us. That is that is the comfort that they're seeking. The crops failing. Well, they're going to go and do a ritual to kind of try and stop the crops from failing because it creates great anxiety. And that's their way of getting comfort. Now, in a world, we're just, the modern world that we're living in, we're trying to create comfort with, stacks and stacks of pillows on our beds and, extremely good puffy jackets. And, so we're creating the world of comfort as we can, but it's just not, that was never on offer. And I think that that's not what the human condition is supposed to trade with us. So how do you, in this modern world, sit in a state of hope when it's like, well, there's no evidence to suggest that things are going to go well. I'm sorry, hope isn't about evidence.
Yeah.
Hope is about actually living as though the world that we are that we are creating and yearning for is arriving, is here, is coming.
Yeah.
And so it's an embodied practice of it's, for me, I've kind of discovered five elements of it, and I think there's probably many more, but the ones that are sort of interesting to me at the moment is this sort of idea that the first kind of realm of hope is this place of inner alchemy, that deep transformational work that you do and that you're working with people on. It's that sort of personal revolution that's happening in the nervous system. And, it's like you realize you're not broken, that the outer world is, and you've got this incredible sort of dissonance with the outer world, and it's showing up in your body as some disease or some hurt or some kind of suffering. And so you can get into relationship. It's about that relationship with yourself
Mm.
and learning to listen to your gut, literally and figuratively, for the information. Um, and then for me, so there's probably so many dimensions of the self and the body to explore. And I'm just a very beginner in that. But I think that that's for me and hope, that's one of my most interesting kind of territories, is kind of learning to trust myself again, or ever.
Can
And
I
then
can I speak just briefly to because I think that's we can't skip over that example you used of ancestral ritual, and whether
Mm.
it's dancing for the rains or speaking to the ancestors or even sitting around the fire and truth speaking as a community, that these things can look cutesy, right? They can look like nice little ornaments that you hang, like a dream catcher. But when we really slow down and look at the profound intention and attention that's being given to each of these rituals that are unique and moving in dynamic relationship with the moment, they are so much more, in my opinion, than seeking comfort. Because I think when we're cold or stressed or lacking uncertainty and just needing a fix right now because I can't handle this anxiety and this uncertainty, so just make me comfortable, put the heater on, do this, do that, like get rid of it, right? That's a real anxiety response in a nervous system, which is fine and normal, and we all do it. So I'm not judging that, but that level of seeking comfort to numb a difficult feeling is really has become normalized in the modern day world. Whereas if we go down into this ancestral example of experiencing deep uncertainty and perhaps deep grief, needing rain for food, right? They are sitting with the potential of starving. They are
Mhm.
sitting with the potential of losing people to real death and plague and whatever. And rather than wish away or deny that anxiety and uncertainty, they are meeting it face to face and in relationship with the dead ones,
Mhm.
consulting the dead ones, talking to them, developing that two-way relationship of listening. They're sitting around the fire and speaking about the grief. They're talking through and asking the rains to come. So
Well,
they're,
they're also charging the space with their intentionality. And I
yeah,
think that that is an incredible practice. That is I mean, that's like the strategic plan, but expressed in the most, soulful, wholehearted way. And done on the daily, and and kind of. So I feel like, yeah, they're charging the space with the potential.
and what that has from a like a neuroscience point of view is you then have a collection of community members who are sharing intentionality, which allows us to feel that oxytocin because we're on the same page and we're having the same conversation and we're feeling very seen and witnessed in our grief and in our struggle. We're not alone, scrambling for the puffer jacket. We're all sitting there in the cold and we're all helping to cut the firewood and we're all helping to be to experience that discomfort together. And there's, of course, that sense of very much scarce resources and sharing. How can we most elegantly share resource? Because we will all die
Mm.
if
Mm.
we don't figure this out together. So
Mm.
that very real facing of mortality. And I really, really love this idea of ancestral thinking, which thinking about, well, how can I create the world for my great great grandchildren? What choices can I make that
Mm.
enables them to have beautiful, clean oceans and beautiful, nourished forests? And so not only thinking back to ancestors past, but also forwards to ancestors that aren't born yet. And this can help us again, get these oxytocins, these dopamines, these feel good experiences through cultivating those very real relationships. So there is a
Yeah,
nervous
well,
system impact, is what I'm saying.
yes, and I think that, in terms of, there's another sort of realm that I talk about with hope, which is, I've been calling it dare dreaming, but it is very much that, it's evoking an intergenerational frame. So you are, no longer looking at the week, month, year, 10 year. You are looking beyond yourself and beyond, and the horizon for beyond your, and that changes I imagine the chemistry because it feels very different. It feels like when I start to think in that kind of way, I just relax. I relax and I become, it's almost like my wisdom pack becomes available to me
Yeah.
because I'm not in the kind of cortisol and caught up in the moment of things. So, and
That's that
for
that
the
that's very technically true. When we're caught in the stress and the anxiety of, oh my God, I'm cold, I'm uncomfortable, what am I going to do? We are not accessing as much of our prefrontal cortex, which is where we have that lovely creative, problem-solving, relational parts of ourselves, the higher
Mm,
wisdom. It's a little bit inaccessible when we're right in the thick of the stress and the trauma. So when we build our bandwidth to be with discomfort and not freak out, which takes time, we can actually have a little bit more creativity, a little bit of humor. And we relax into the pickle and we say, "Oh, pickle juice. How are we going to move through this?" And we actually access new ideas.
mm. Well, and I mean, I guess, you know, the reason for having a hope dispatch is because we are in a predicament. We're in a pickle,
We
and
are. We are. Doesn't it feel
but
good to say that? We're in a pickle.
we're in a
It's
pickle.
2025. Global politics is a schmozzle. Resources on our planet are dwindling and ecosystems are dying. This is real. I mean, we
Mm.
are living in a really exciting time.
Yes. I mean, I used to think about, I used to be kind of more upbeat and optimistic and be like, we've got this. Now, I feel like I'm not saying that we don't have this, but I'm saying that are we asking the right questions? Like I'm interested in not what, but who and how
Mm.
we go about this. And so that's why I think that, it really is about who we are becoming. And that's an
Yes.
intergenerational question. It's like, what is the species that managed to overcome this and arrive at a destination where we have these reference points of aha, like so what is the aha that we're seeking? So how do we get ourselves an orientation around the what's emerging? Who are we going to be? What is being called from us? What does that mean today and daily? But then what does that mean, for beyond? So you're kind of,
Mm.
and then who else needs to be in the room? Whose voice haven't we heard from for thousands of years? Like, is the right conversation taking place? And, I feel like that's something I've loved doing this year is kind of, are we asking the right questions? Are we caring about the right things? And are we
And
focusing our attention?
yes, and I think another one that comes up is, are we aware of what we're bringing into the room? Because everywhere we go, we bring our crap, we bring our baggage, we
Mm,
bring our undigested muck, right? And it's a personal, unique process for how we meet all of that. It's in us, we're carrying it around, but what are we going to do with that? Are we going to keep suppressing it and shoving it down, distracting, denying, ignoring, and just sort of like moving around with all of this clogged and blocked up discomfort? Or are we going to learn how we shake it out, move it out, sing it out, poetry it out? Because when we come into a room, the question is, are we really bringing ourselves or are we bringing other people's stuff?
mm,
And I think this question of who are we becoming is magic and it's brilliant. And I think that is it. That is the medicine. And the sensing ground process I've come to explore and benefit from is how can I really empty what is not serving me in this moment? The ideas, the beliefs, the narratives, the stories, right? And I'm picking them up from everywhere, from Instagram, from my parents, from my neighbor. It's coming at me. It's the invisible.
mm,
And how can I be in relationship with all of that clutter so I can quiet and slow down into being a sensitive receptor and someone who is able to deeply witness life unfolding within me and around me. And I've been talking this week with a number of beautiful people about this idea of witnessing and how I feel it's the number one skill set we need on the planet. We
mm,
need people who are empty enough to truly witness life, and witness people as they go through this becoming process. Witnessing requires a huge bandwidth in terms of nervous system capacity because it means sitting with a lot of unknown for a long
Mm.
period of time and allowing this self-discovery process to uniquely unfold. And when anxiety comes in, we're like, we want to interrupt, we want to intervene, we want to treat, we want to label, right? But we need to have this huge container of messy, messy unfolding, unraveling, and becoming.
Mm. Yeah, we're going to have to put our gumboots on because there's a lot to wade through, and I think, and a lot of that is personal stuff. And I think we're going to have to get really good at kind of showing the world the things that we've found inside ourselves, the things that would normally kind of pop out and be like, oh God, I don't want you
Oh,
to
yeah.
see that. Like really messy things and getting good at having a conversation around the things that we've discovered about ourselves, the things that are in our cultural inheritances, the things that are familial inheritances.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I've been lucky to be I feel like I was raised by very conscious people, very sort of politically aware pe people. Who are like great feminists. They're great activists. They've been, they've powered through and stood up to racism and to, lots vast inequalities. And so I have that kind of, I'm proud of that heritage. But I had my dad here this weekend, and I love my dad, and it, but I do experience this inheritance from and it's an inheritance of righteousness, and it's like uh, I'm like, oh, it's like a kind of superiority, and it's the same kind of superiority um, that colonized these lands, that arrived here and looked at the tools and looked at the people and the way that they were living and been like, you know. Uh,
Yeah.
used terminology like savages and to describe people who were living in connection with this land in sustainable, relationship. They were healthy, they were well. The children were, thriving and shared. There were wars for resources. This is a human problem. This is an animal problem. That is a problem that we all share. We all have you know,
So it's a reality.
reality. And we haven't found a sophisticated way around that just yet. But, like that kind of, yeah, that superiority, not that I'm saying my dad's superior, but it's a legacy. It's like, I know I've got this. It's like I'm an expert in this, or I've got it, there's just all of these kind of ways of being white ways of kind of being in the world that it's hard to see unless you have another worldview around you to reference it. So that's why I feel so lucky to have
Yes.
the Indigenous perspective of the Maori to help me reflect on my own self and to see that I have a perspective, but it's not necessarily better or it's not necessarily worse, but it is different. I can't see it because it's like oxygen. You can't or being in a tank of water, you don't really know that you're in that
So
until
we
you're out
don't
of it.
we don't know what we don't know, but also it's very addictive to feel certain and to feel right.
Yes.
It's like the
And I
brain
think
goes, yes, all right, I've got something I can hook onto. Fabulous. Because the truth
it's
is, everything's a freaking mystery.
well, and we live, and and again, that going back to that idea that human beings want certainty, and actually what you're suggesting with this people living with a container that is, allowed to feel the messiness. We're going to have to get match fit, not only to
Yeah.
witness this and to be able to see and have amazing meaning making, but also have the capacity to hold complexity, messiness, uncertainty, and discomfort with
Yeah.
grace.
Yes.
And that's
It's a
So there's
journey.
lots of skills that are needed. And I think,
Yeah.
it's kind of the right time to be looking at what those skills are
Yeah.
and going, oh, well, how is our world kind of preparing us for those aptitudes and awarenesses? And it's really not. I mean,
Well,
it's
they're
definitely
being, well, I feel like
I
these, I feel like these skills and conversations are often being sort of flicked over into this spiritual cutesy category when
am.
I am convinced that it's not cute, it's not an add-on, it's not a trinket. We, as human beings, it's a teachable skill, but I believe we all need to know how to locate our own attention and our own intention. Because once each person has that level of clarity, they can function on the planet with more gentleness. And,
Mm.
just even very, very simply bringing it down to when I can be with myself as I am in each moment to really cultivate a deeper sense of what contentment means to me in each moment. I don't need to buy stuff. I actually need less resource. I become more contented more often, and I take what I need and nothing more because I'm
Mm.
contented with myself. We were able to outgrow this striving and chasing, and we at the beginning of the talk you spoke about how we're all searching for something, we're seeking for something, right? And I mean that's a great inquiry. What is it we're searching for? And I
We're in quest. We're deep in quest, but with no clarity, like for what that is. So that currently is being captured, our attention, our questing is being captured.
well,
We're
and it
distracted.
and you've been giving me all these beautiful examples, like of the righteous colonizer, which is in my blood too, by the way. Um, Judging, an academic theoretical superiority or something. And an example that comes to me is being a mother with infants, babies, toddlers. Before I had children, I would have turned my nose up at things like smelling the compost bin. It's just gross, right? It's like, oh, clean that with a separate cloth and a separate this and vomit and poo and wee. And I would have had like a somatic repulsion. I don't want that, right? It's gross. But as I got, motherhood for me was really an incredible rebirth for me into my somatic animal nature and the beauty of being with the body as it is. And it's so interesting because I was watching myself transition into this more quote unquote savage way of being really deeply okay with poo and wee and vomit. Like I can literally sleep in a bed that my child has vomited in, and I feel a comfort. I feel a connection. I'm deeply grateful that my child's okay. Give it a wipe and just keep sleeping. That there's no desire or push for cleanliness and perfect bed sheets and just the right perfume, and that body smells and body fluids become this miraculous experience. And I think that's what we're actually all searching for, to experience joy while sitting in vomit. Like to be so immersed in the experience that you don't need to change anything.
Mm.
And
Mm.
that from an outsider point of view who's not able to experience that presence and be really in that animal nature, I can see how that could be judged as just gross. Like, why are you not dealing with that? Right? But to truly be present in a community amongst the mess and a part of it and totally surrendered into what is as it is, that is a portal into
Mm.
this
Mm.
rich expansion of presence where everything is welcome, including the vomit. And we're
Mm.
not trying to change it, fix it, improve it.
Mm.
Um, and in that example, we were camping, so we didn't really have many options. But we just wiped the vomit chunks away and laid a towel down and kept sleeping. And we dealt with it when we could in the morning. Um, But there is something about returning to our animal nature of being as we are and not fighting it. If you've got your period and there's blood everywhere, you've got your period and there's blood everywhere. Like being with the body.
Mm.
Um, so yeah,
That's a long journey home, I would say, back to our bodies. And I say that, because I've just turned 50 and, it's confronting how quickly the body sort of does its changes. And
mm,
but I'm aware that the invitation is
mm,
to, like we've become materialists. We care about the surface. And it's, we've got to dig deeper now. We don't have a choice. We're arriving at a time where we're actually being called to go, let it go, let it go, let the expectations and the striving for things that do not matter to planet and place and people.
yeah.
You
But also
have
they're
to,
not, they're often, I mean, everyone's unique, but I think often those things people are striving for, whether it's beauty or wealth or a new, whatever, a new car, like all of these things, the great body, to appear popular or whatever. I'm not even convinced that they get this incredible ecstatic reward feeling. It's almost like this constant trying to grapple at something, but there's never really that sense of, oh, I've arrived. This is amazing. It's that
that's the abstraction, isn't it? So
the
that's the
fleeting. Yeah,
We've gone into a world, a realm of ideas. So if I do X, then people will think of me as Y, and therefore I will get. Whereas if you're an animal,
you're
you are
in it.
like,
It's here
you're in it
now, or
right
it's not
here.
at all. It's
Yeah, yeah. It's life or death, or it's cuddles and fire and talking, and like there are. So I think that we've got to be aware of abstraction. I think that's what the witnessing is about, just going, am I here or am I somewhere else? And the computer, like the computers are connecting us right now.
mm,
But so we have to have the kind of witness that is allowing us to do this and to take what is powerful about this and remember that we are bodies. So it's like we've just got this incredible kind of pull, uh, utilizing our devices to
mm,
create global change where we're communicating and sharing our ideas and we're rising
mm,
up at hot moments to take action and um, we're experiencing our
mm.
planetary body. We're experiencing ourselves as a collective intelligence through AI. So it can be that abstraction can be helpful, but we have to be able to distinguish between when it's an
Well,
abstract and yeah.
I read recently that it's about action, and I think I'm tending to agree. How am I in action? Because all of these what ifs, maybe, coulda, shouldas, right? But right here and now is heaven on earth. It's here. We've all
Mm,
arrived. And when we're able to really learn how to bring our presence right in, which comes through the body, deeply agreeing with you, through our eight senses, what are we hearing? What are we seeing? What are we smelling and tasting? How are we locating ourselves? Can we bring in the whole body? Wiggle the
mm,
toes and move the hips and where am I physically directing myself? Where am I facing? What am I listening to? What am I paying attention to? How am I contributing to the room? How am I speaking up? If I can smell injustice, am I actually meeting that? Or am I shying away and hiding? So how am I shaping the world that I live in by being a participating community member? Or am I
mm,
putting a mask on, pretending, faking, and actually not really showing up to myself
mm,
or others?
mm,
And what I've noticed is the more I can truly live on that edge of vulnerability and rawness and realness and bring my real self, right? Um, it's very, very rewarding. It's very satisfying. It's full of contentment because I'm constantly navigating this edge of courage and risk, courage and risk. And folks, I can report back that I received a bucket load of judgment
Mm,
and quote unquote rejection and labels and all sorts of good human stuff. But it's worth it. It's so amazing because what other people say really doesn't mean much about me. And like
yeah.
there's such freedom in that. And how other people experience my unique humanness might bump up against some of their own insecurities or anxieties, right? And that's
Mm,
their window of tolerance and their nervous system being like, oh my God, she's not playing the script. She's not saying the thing that you're meant to say in that situation. Freak out. Um, but being deeply okay with this, quite disruptive, right? I have this
mm,
image, Megan, of freshwater rivers flowing into the ocean, right? So you've got fresh water and you've got salt water. And we've been talking about hope and witnessing and the world. And if nothing changes, you just have salt water with salt water and fresh water with fresh water. But what we're really talking about here is entering the brackish water, where salt water and fresh water are learning how to meet each other. And it's edgy and it's uncomfortable and it's awkward. And, it's not all pretty. But this is where the witnessing comes in. Because witnessing is not saying, okay, well, I'm salt water and you can do what you like and I'll just witness you, like with silence. No, that's not what we're talking about. Witnessing is when you go into that brackish water and you witness the becoming of the fresh water. And you say, this is how it moves me. This is what I'm noticing. This is what I'm feeling as I'm with you. So it's actually giving that direct human pulse, that mirroring, that reflecting, and it's very edgy and it's very courageous. Um, and in my opinion, it's absolutely invigorating
mm.
because
Well,
it's that
yeah, there's
divine union of presence without the masks or the pretense or the force or the pushing or the faking. It's just so real. It's animal.
the animal. Well, I sort of I think of myself as an edge-dwelling mammal. Living in a place where I sort of seek. I mean, to be totally honest, like I want to be liked and I want to be accepted,
Mm,
but only so that I can share. Like you only get to share and participate if you're accepted. So I don't be sitting like right on the outskirts of,
mm,
but I do feel comfortable with being an outlier and an outsider. And I do think that has granted me a perspective that, being on the inside and being the most, accepted person, or being
mm.
popular or any of those things affords you. Like, I think, yeah, it's given me the gift of distance and reflection and courage to just try and experiment and play and go and do things that might not I'm striving towards greater connection with myself, and so I'm
And
going to have to
and
go out
others. It
and
happens.
others.
It happens together. And this is the kind of paradoxical thing that when we do surrender deeply into groupthink and cliques and you're in the middle of the popular whatever, right? It's fake because it's everyone's full of masks. There's not a huge amount of substance behind it. But when you come out into these edgy conversations where there might be tears or there might be some kind of exposure of something that's shameful and we're opening up the gates where it's not so private and there's something being revealed, it does bring connection. And so even when I have had moments of deeply being judged, labeled, or rejected, there's still connection.
Mm.
And I have a personality or a belief system where everybody on the planet is either my friend or a future friend. There's two categories. You're my friend or you're my future friend. So even if people are feeling like a little bit edgy around me or unable to um, communicate or connect, they're still a future friend. It's just like they're not coming through the door yet.
Mm,
And I
mm,
think there is that sense of wanting to be liked, wanting to be accepted, tribe and belonging. But once we have that in ourselves, we carry it with us everywhere. That when I
mm,
truly, truly know that I am so profoundly connected to myself and the universe is within me. No one can break that strong connection. And I find myself now just searching for any crack where I can connect with people. That's what drives me. That's unique to me, right? That's I'm not suggesting that's universal, but I am I'm not I'm not getting dopamine hits or rewards from talking about fluffy stuff, right? Quoting movies or just reciting rote information that I could read in a book or, I'm very interested in connecting to the uniqueness of each person and allowing, hopefully, them feeling safe enough to reveal themselves little by little. So they're unfolding, they're becoming. Because the truth is we have no idea who anyone is. And it's this slow reveal, which is ecstatic. It's so invigorating once we're really in it.
And I think that there's a caution in that because, going back to that kind of righteous concept of that, feels quite strong in my family line, that, that certainty and that, I would say that my kind of lineage is the liberal left. But my people would they would be horrified to think that maybe it was their behavior and their certainty and their righteousness that has actually created the polarization between, because I know that on some level they believe in this possibility of a shared
Planet.
space that we can, where things work for all of us because they also care about equity and but I think that righteous anger polarizes people. It makes them tend a line, and no other possibility or conversations, dangerous conversations are possible because, you know, things will be, people will be cancelled. There will be
Yeah.
vitriol, heaping, helping levels. And I've experienced this, personally. But I think that if we were to, you know, if we're thinking about a genuinely different future, we've got to behave very genuinely differently when it comes to our tribe and our perspective and our world. We have to tend that relational space between the poles. We've got to do what you suggest and think of these people as future friends, but not so that they have to change, but maybe we have to change and quite a lot, to allow us to be more curious and willing to have ideas that are uncomfortable and sit with them and maybe compromise and potentially, I just think that yeah, there's that very messy, complex, complicated space that, you
Mm.
know, we don't feel ready for because we don't have the skills. But
Yeah, I
the
agree.
skills
I
are the
agree.
witnessing, the presencing, the holding of yourself in your body, the willingness to be brave and
Yeah.
extend a hand to someone you don't agree with.
Yep.
And I've got a newsletter to subscribe to called Tangle, which has political views from the right and the left, uh, you know, kind of that the journalistic team go through them and they're trying to extract, the things that make sense from both of them and present them to each other so you can actually see more clearly what is being yearned for, what is being hoped for, and where we share our humanity.
Well,
And
yeah, I think the other thing is that's just striking in what you're saying, and I'd love to hear you reflect back on this because I'm somewhat confused, is I see every single human as a valid voice. Like if we've got all this noise, each person is a signal within the noise.
Mm.
And I almost find it jarring or incomprehensible that one person could speak on behalf of an entire community or belief system, because I think that's a lot of the noise. And I think what I'm talking about is each person speaking from their personal center, that this is where I am in this moment. This is what I am seeing in this moment. This is what I am feeling in this moment. And this is what I am believing in this moment. And I speak from my personal unique center, not on behalf of every
Mhm.
woman with white skin or something like that. Um, and yeah, when I have been navigating these relational spaces and these edges, I have to keep myself accountable. And I've actually voice messaged you, like just checking in. This is a personal check-in. Like, am I connecting here? Or at some level, am I disconnecting and judging? Right? And
Mhm.
keeping ourselves accountable. And that was like, is my door open to this difficult conversation, or am I finding clever ways of pretending I'm light and love, but actually the door's closed?
Mhm.
And like really always checking in. And I would often take pause and be like, yeah, I want this conversation to keep going. I want this connection to keep evolving, but it takes skills for
Mhm.
both parties to keep showing up through that discomfort. And the other question is, am I trying to understand the other person, or am I trying to persuade them? Right? And I'm quite hungry to understand where other people are coming from, because that, again, that gives me dopamine and that gives
Mhm.
me satisfaction. And one of the big frustrations for me in this dance and this journey is a lot of people don't have those skills of speaking from here. They can
Mhm.
quote, they can talk policy, they can talk about all sorts of fluff and theory, but they won't necessarily know how to reveal themselves from their center. And that's
Mhm.
actually, as you say, that's where we are on this planet, and they are skills we need. What what am I in direct contact with right now? What is unique to me in this moment? What do I have to contribute
Mhm.
to this precious?
Yeah, I'm assuming those are our learning edges, you know. That's where the rubber hits the road, where we're kind of I've got all of these ideas about the dimensions of hope and where and it's like I've always found it really helpful when I have tensions or breakdowns in my life. I'm like, aha, here's the opportunity to
Yeah.
actually embody and practice, and aren't I lucky? But um, I don't always get it right. I've lost friends. I
I don't I
haven't,
don't I don't think there is a right. And you
yeah.
haven't lost friends. They're just future friends taking a little pause. This,
Well, I think yes, and also I mean in some
we've
ways
only,
I have
we've
lost a
only
friend
lost
because
friends
I'm
if we've blocked them out, right?
yes,
There's a
and
difference.
I yes, and I think that also I don't I see it as being such a rich engagement because some of these kind of conflicts they keep revisiting me. I sort of think
Mhm.
back, oh, what I did, 7 years ago with that person. I could have done that better, or I
Mhm.
can see the gift. So I mean, I miss people, and they have been teachers for me,
Yeah.
and I think that we just should not be scared of getting ourselves out of expert humans now and into the learner version of human. Like, just take a step back and relax into the fact that we don't have all the answers that we need for the challenges that lie ahead. So we need to get into a genuine new relationship of discovery and humility and in question, like just we've got to ask better questions, dangerous questions, loving questions, questions that are, beyond our lifetime. We have to stand on that platform, and that is a place of unknowing uh, and we have to do that together. So we can't leave voices out. We can't leave anyone out because
Yeah.
we've seen what happens when you exclude people and you push them to the margins, when the voices of women or Indigenous people or people with disabilities are not included. The system gets created to benefit just a small few. And we can't do that. That's not our future.
No, it's devastating. Um, some great questions that we can all ask ourselves is, where am I in this moment?
Mm.
How am I meeting myself? in this moment, and in this moment, and in this moment, that's an ongoing unfolding and discovery. And I think once we develop this exciting curiosity within ourselves, this inner friendship, it's
Mm.
similar to what you just said, Megan. It's like when I have any of these tensions or edges flowing in and out of my life, whether it's a mothering one with my children or my partner or wider community, they are little portals into learning something about what I didn't know about myself,
Mm.
which is this beautiful expansion and homecoming. Oh, hello and welcome. Hello and welcome. And this is that the more we know ourselves, the more we can really rest into ourselves. And my particular audience of people are generally terrified of themselves. They're feeling
Mm.
helpless, hopeless, and powerless within their own experience. And there is not such a great relationship between them and their bodies because it's driven by this concept of symptoms and abnormalizing. And so they're on this incredible, luscious journey of rewriting a new relationship with themselves and their body and developing this intimacy, which
It's
is,
so cool. Yeah, because it's like the there's an industry that is capitalizing on their helplessness. And so the act of kind of imagining that there's a different world possible, that health is actually our health system, looks like something vastly different, but it's always
Mhm.
related to my body, my family, my community. There's like radiating, rippling kind of, ways of expressing, well-being, and that it's those all those levels. It's, my mind, it's my family, it's my body, and it's my spiritual reality. Those are the sort of the walls that keep up my house.
Yeah.
And like I think that part of what we have lost is an imagination for better and different. And part of what the Hope Dispatch does is it's an invitation to keep doing that fundamental human thing we do, which is imagine for better,
Yes.
is to
Yes.
forecast for better, to to imagine a preferable future that we are collectively moving towards, because
Yeah.
it helps. It helps.
When I was preparing for birthing my first child, I remember someone saying, you prepare for the worst, but you expect the best. And it's pretty much that, isn't it? We have to be prepared for tremendous difficulties that may come for us and our children and our future grandchildren. And we need the skill set of being
Mm.
able to gracefully sit with discomforts. So we're not always preferencing comfort, but we do need to develop this skill set of understanding the power of our own intention and attention, every person being an equal player on this planet, every voice mattering, and how it's so important that no matter who you are or where you come from, you learn to speak from your center because whatever you're bringing into the room is of value, and that there is no hierarchy. There is no hierarchy. Everyone is your friend or your future friend. And the more we can learn to show up with loving kindness toward ourselves, we end up being a ripple of loving kindness and possibility. And I can't agree more that imagination, if we don't have imagination, all the systems stay the same. And whatever we're doing to the planet now just keeps going. So we need to be able to reimagine. How do we become that next version of ourselves we're ready to become? How can I respond to the direct environment that I'm contacting? How can I be in reciprocity and participation and communication? Um,
Yes, and I think that that is not without effort. Like that's not just going to happen. It actually does require us to commit ourselves to that process. I would like to turn around my camera, but it'll be a messy experience just to show you like the wall that's in front of me, which is essentially, it's like my dashboard of all the metrics of my well-being. It's like all of the areas of my life that I'm moving on, the all of the abilities that I'm trying to, develop. And I have, I know that you also have morning practices where you're encountering yourself, you're examining, you're witnessing, and you're improving, you're learning, you're in that constant, you're sort of setting that frame for your day, you're charging your own life with intention and purpose. And I do the same. And it's not a, but it's, I don't start work till 10 o'clock. I'm busy, from morning to till then, really working on that because for me it's a really important thing to do because that is where my dopamine comes from, but that is also where my change, I see that change rippling out into my world. It makes me far more effective. And I just sort of put myself into this constant state of learning, for my own development. I feel like that's the best service I can be to
Mm.
the world, my daughter and my family and my community is, dedicating myself to this.
Can I play devil's advocate a bit there? Because what I'm going to say is probably going to annoy half the world, but whatever. It's um a lot of that I'm not, right? And I deeply love what you just shared, and I think it's important, and I want to really celebrate it because I think um the effort is a relevant player. However, my experience is that there's nothing for me to improve,
Mm,
that I'm witnessing my own evolution, and it's completely
mm,
effortless
beautiful.
because I'm in my own experience so fully that when I witness it, I evolve and I have a choice to participate um how I want to meet that moment.
Mm,
And the more intimate I become with myself, the more sophisticated that dance is, but it is really an unknowing and an unlearning.
mm,
Um, but yeah, the real words for me are effortlessness, allowing, surrender, and there is no fix, there is no problem, there is nothing to improve, that I am who I am and as I am. And deeply, deeply learning to be present with that is the simplicity and the
mm,
profound magic, because it's through that's the sensing ground philosophy right there. But what I've noticed in that, so I've stopped learning, I've stopped any kind of self-help. What I've noticed is my stress and trauma loops are resolving and biocompleting because I'm showing up and witnessing the completion of them. And I
mm.
am feeling more clarity, more centered, more grounded. Um, yeah, I think I'm more courageous and I have more capacity. The more I soften into who I am, there's less resistance, less exhaustion, less tension or like contraction.
Mm, mm,
But when those contractions do come, it's not a problem, it's a journey.
mm,
So yeah, the and I know this really annoys people, so I'm saying it, acknowledging that we celebrate in our culture the effort and the efforting and how hard it is, and and I'm like, oh, actually, when I gave birth to my babies, they birthed themselves, my body opened, I did nothing, I just breathed, it was effortless, and people don't say that. You're not allowed to say that. That's counterculture. People are gonna hate you. But maybe we need to bring in a conversation where effortlessness is our nature. You
mm,
don't need 20 years of therapy and you don't need 100 different guides and mentors and apps. You can actually be intimate with yourself
mm,
and trust that unfolding of your journey to show you exactly what you need to see in every moment. You don't pull it out, you don't chase it. It comes to you, I promise you. But being
Well,
witness is the
yeah,
container.
so, just reflecting back, like the effort for me is in protecting that space and that time because it's not
Yeah.
the what I'm doing in that time is of no effort whatsoever. It's pure. joy and inquiry and discovery and development and all the things that make me happy. It's inspirational. Like, I might be writing, I might be
Mm,
um, doing yoga, I might be meditating. No effort, just joy. But the effort is like pushing the world back
mm.
enough so that I can protect that and defend it because I don't have a religious practice, but I guess that's my practice. It's
I was
like
gonna
that's what
say
I'm.
it sounds devotional.
It is devotional. It's beautiful, and I feel like that's the potentially, to summarize both of our kind of conversations there, the places that sort of the invitational around, dedicating yourself or that unfoldingness, like
Yeah.
that's what I'm doing it. It's for my own unfolding. You're doing it for your own unfolding
Yeah.
and builds trust.
Yes, and coming back to imagining and daring to dream and meeting hope and grief, we do need space for that.
Mm.
And, we need our grief circles and our soul tending circles, and so that when I'm with my kids, I can be with my kids.
Mm.
And when I'm with you, I can be with you. And wherever I am, I can fully be. And I do think that as I have developed, but also I have young children, so time is a different mechanism, right? Um, I have had to learn how to do this in life as I'm cooking, as I'm cleaning, as I'm packing bags, I've had to learn how to bring the devotional, effortless flowing with me. And then there
Yeah.
are times when I explode into a melting point. There's a volcanic eruption, and I will have to put that effort into getting the specific time I need to really meet myself wherever I am in that way. So you're quite right. I think that's the effort is in holding the container for the dreaming because we need time to dream
Mm.
and to
Mm.
anchor ourselves in. Otherwise, if there's no dream or no intention or no imagination on our part, we end up living everybody else's lives reactionary.
Mm. Mm.
So there is that element of containment and intentionality. I'd call it intentional more so than effort. But
Mm.
effort is a thing. I'm not dismissing effort. It's just I feel like we can soften our emphasis on it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean,
Culturally, culturally.
yeah, that comes along with my, just all those narratives around, how what success looks like, and that's definitely a hangover.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, circle back to what you said originally about the effort and the learning and the improving. That is definitely where we start. And that is where I get a lot of my community members to start because in the beginning, we need some kind of framework or discipline to just start building new habits and
Mm.
learning new options of, how do I know how to be devotional to myself if I don't really know how I do that? So we try different things. Do I love poetry? Am I into journaling? Do I like art? What's my thing? Is it yoga? Is it this? Is it that? So there is a huge amount of that effort, learning, and discipline as we become intimate with ourselves. Like who am I? How do I do this? How do I meet
Mm.
myself? It's
Mm.
no one knows. You don't even know until you figure it out. So it's like Megan can't give you a prescription because there is no prescription. I
Mm.
can't give my clients a prescription. So there is that clunky beginner's mindset, which is actually really fun, but I think that that's quite an effortful process, isn't it? It gets the snowball going.
Mm.
Yeah. The Hope Dispatch. How would people find you if they would like to read some of your work?
Well, I'm probably foolishly maintaining two different routes at present, but I'm on Substack, the Hope Dispatch. .substack.com, and people can also subscribe to me through my website, so bigpicturethinking.nz.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I'll pop some links in.
Awesome.
If you could offer your younger self maybe a hint of encouragement, what do you feel you'd say to her in this moment?
Oh, I've been thinking a lot about her recently, actually, and It's, I mean, yes, there was a bit of distraction, and but I think that the she's gone through her journey in a full and complete way, and so long as she's arrived at me, I'm happy with that. So I'm
Yeah.
just loving and accepting towards her. And, you only can go as fast as you can go. And it's all an unfolding, but I think it's in service of the question. It's like, what's the quest? What's the question? Because the question unlocks the quest.
Yeah,
So just ask beautiful questions, and it'll help you strive for a more beautiful you.
I love that so much. Reminds me of a meme I saw somewhat recently, which was along the lines of, I don't need therapy. What was it? I don't need therapy. I need to complete the prophecy. Or something like that. And I thought, I love that because we are all on our own journey. And in so many ways, and God bless all the medical professionals and health professionals and spiritual professionals, like everyone's doing their best to help out. I think very few people are really not coming from a basis of good. I think most people are genuinely out there to be in service in something they believe in. However, it's all just feeding us back into the system and the cage. And to truly be on your unique personal journey, it's entering a massive unknown and a huge amount of darkness where there are no guides, no mentors, no teachers, and all we have is this inner compass. And so the more we can really build that self-trust and dream and imagine whoever it is we're becoming through this dark tunnel, that journey, that's your quest, that's your prophecy for you and you alone. Um, Once we can surrender into that with a tiny little bit of humor, the play kicks in. It's not all,
Amen.
yeah, it's not all dark and muddy. Sometimes it's deeply invigorating and ecstatic, and we're here to live, right? Yeah,
Well, something's going to happen anyway.
yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful ideas and reflections. I loved so many of the visuals you gave us of the righteous Western colonizer that many of us have in our story, indirectly or directly, myself
Yep, they're my
included.
ancestors.
Yep, yep, yeah. Well, I'm European by blood, and but then also those beautiful images you gave us of the ancestral indigenous tribal cultures that have those direct First Nations country connection.
Mm.
It's so beautiful seeing both. And how can we learn from both? And what's that new way forward where all voices are honored? Let's dream.
Love that. Thank you, Joey.
So beautiful. Thank you so much. To learn more about me, visit seekingbalance.com.au and I'll put a link up for you to find Megan Salole and her beautiful big thinking and the Hope Dispatch. So it's a bye for now, everyone.